I changed my lighting up in here a little bit to try to give you a little better detail. It's a good clean pull now because we took our time, wrapped it, loosened up any possible sand that could break off later along any of the tangent parts of that profile. We are done with this portion of this. Like I said, this is the false drag. Now we can actually get to making molds. We got a timing mark here that we're going to always keep with our letters. This is one reason why it's critical to keep all your dimensions on flask, a standard close tolerance size, and that way you can interchange coats and drags. From here, and knock out the last 4 molds and kill mosquitoes. If you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you along. If you are a little confused about this starting point on this video, you might want to go to the previous one where I am making the false drag that we're using here in the bottom. The false drag, to reiterate, is only to suspend the pattern and provide the parting lines that have already been coped in. So all that's been initially done. No longer do we have to waste a lot of time coping down to find those parting lines. It does speed the process up. I think I was making a mold every 12 minutes. This first layer of sand that you saw me putting down was the facing sand, which is a lot finer grain, leaves a lot better finish on the casting. The risers are the 2 little pyramid looking things that we're setting in place on each side of the wheel. Now I'm using a little different tool for ramming this first layer tonight. My goal was to distribute even pressure per square inch, and this tool also eliminated the need of having to scratch it with a comb to get the second layer to bind good with the first layer. Now once I strike this off, once I've dressed this side up, flattened it out, I'm going to flip the mold over and remove the false drag and ram up a new drag. Now I could go ahead and cut the sprue on this side while I have it here, but that would pose a problem when we go to ram the sand for the drag on the other side, because there's going to be a hole that has to be plugged off or capped off to keep the sand from getting wedged down in there. So it's better to just flip-flop the thing several times, no bigger than it is, to accommodate that. And this is the point where I'm going to flip it over, remove the false drag, set it to the side, and we will be done with that false drag until we get ready to make the next mold. And it's leaving a pristine parting line, no sand out of place, no crumbling. And here I'm placing my trusty dimes in place over the holes of that covers the pull holes on the risers to keep sand from packing down in that. I'm redusting it here. And as far as my voice, I think my sinuses are acting up. I may have to end up going to the family physician. I can't tell the difference. There's so many politicians that are medical experts out there now. But anyway, I went this time last year. They give me a Z-Pack, knocked it right out. While I was there, I was having some other issues. They decided they needed to do a prostate exam. Of course, everything turned out all right. There was nothing wrong. And I went to pay my bill, and he met me up front and wanted to make sure that I vote and re-elect him in November. But this is the last layer of sand that we're going to be putting on the mold prior to dumping it. As you can see, I'm using a trucker's billy club for this part of it. Now, I'm switching back and forth on this particular mold because it's one of the first ones that I was doing, and you know, sometimes it may take up to 3-4 molds as you're going to figure out what are the best tools and what's the best methods to go about making an ideal mold. As you guys know, I get a lot of one-off pieces in here, and you have to do a lot of experimenting to see what's going to work with each and every one. What works for one doesn't always work for the other one. It's always tuning process as you go through this. And with 6 wheels that have to be made, I did make little changes here and little changes there as I went until I was satisfied with the results. Now, after I strike this side off, this is the new drag we just made. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to cut the sprue. Then I'm going to flip it back over, and I'm going to separate this mold and remove the pattern. I'm adding a little resonating effect to it to help give a little bit of slack between the pattern and the sand. Keep in mind we're using an actual casting for a pattern which is generally very rough. I did add a smooth coating to this to help aid in the release, but that's still not enough sometimes on an old casting like this. Now I'm going to flip it back over. And it's not a big mold, so it's, you need to exercise anyway, right? So we're going to separate it. Looks great. Got to get my dimes back before I forget those. Now I'm just, this probably didn't need to be wrapped, but it's not going to hurt anything as long as you don't shift it. Now I'm pulling the risers. And I didn't invent the pattern. This particular casting is not that heavy. There's not going to be that much mass to it. The permeability of the sand is ideal for parts this size. I did stick a vent in the riser on each side. Now, when you have a casting that's several pounds or more, I don't like to chance it. I always vent them. I get a lot of comments advising me that I don't need to be doing that. Well, you don't know my sand. You don't know my clay content. Different people use different clay contents in their sand, some more permeable than others. And mine, like I said, I've used mine enough to know about how much mass I can pour in there and properly ventilate the gases through the sand without the need of vents. But as I said a while ago, most of these are one-off pieces, and I just go ahead and vent them just to be on the safe side and not have to do this all over again. We're fixing to cut a semicircular runner around this. I apologize, I did not show that. You're able to make out a little bit about it here. I am going to gate into the line of sight on these spokes at 180 degrees apart. Coming up, my battery dies, so you'll only see the beginning of the next mold before that. And then after that, I'm going to show you my first initial pour attempt on these castings. That didn't go well. I burned my arm. And on the first attempt, generally, I do not have a problem with a plinth sticking to a crucible, and that's exactly what happened here. As I went to pull it, I couldn't get the plinth to break loose, so I decided to try to just stick the plinth down in the pouring shank. If I could get the crucible to stand on its own, balanced on it, which it was not concentric with the plinth whatsoever, as you'll see, I would be able to lift up on the shank, go around the plinth up to the crucible, grab it, and go. Unfortunately, the crucible fell over, dumping hot iron all over the place, along with right around the fuel lines. And I've done that before, and we sure don't want to have that happen again. So Uh, my wife, she knows the drill. She was able to help me get that put out immediately and at least protect the fuel line area of the furnace. 20 minutes later, I had another crucible of iron ready to pour. It came out fine that time. Little did I know that I had the pouring shank laying directly on top of all that hot iron as it was soaking up the heat into the handle. So as I went to grab the pouring shank, pick up on the crucible, and head to the mold, I realized my left hand was on fire. And as I started to try to pour it anyway, the pain got so intense, I just had to drop it. So I ended up dumping 2 crucibles of iron, and I just shut everything down, looked at my wife, and I said, enough. So we cut the lights out, and we called it a night.
What do you want me to do? Behind you. Watch out.
Get right up, fuel line. Fuel line. Just cover that area. That's it.
Come on, Buford. Get it up to at least 10 miles an hour, maybe. You don't want to hold this curve too fast. No. Watch out. Watch out. You're fixing to leave the road. Slow it down, buddy. Slow it down. He's hanging the inner curve here where he doesn't leave the road. He's getting extra traction here, folks. Now, folks, it's hard to judge distance on this camera, but we're only 20 feet from the stop sign. You can make it. I hope he doesn't make a right turn. Yeah. Thank goodness those brakes are holding you back. I don't want you blowing through this one. Come on, Buford. Come on. All right. We got 5 wheels here, another one that we cast several weeks ago, sitting over there, so we're going to have a total of 6 wheels. Fixing to grind and clean these up. Hey, Jake. Hey, boy. Yeah. Good boy. All right, guys. This is the conclusion of the wheel video. It took 3 or 4 videos to get to this point, didn't it? This piece here is the actual pattern, and then this set here are the ones that we just cast. And they're not the smoothest finish by far, but considering the pattern was a cast iron one. Now, I had already molded this one time on the video about a month ago, and we poured short and didn't have a fill. So I will have to make 2 of these. One goes to, no, I may be making 3 of these. I better double check. But this, I haven't really given you much detail on what this is. Well, I'm going to tell you now, it goes on a Vise cart. And we're doing a restoration project for, I believe, 2 of these, maybe 3. I think Andrew just needs 1 set for a spare. But my buddy Andrew Alexander out of Dallas, he owns the Blacksmith Tool Museum. Largest collection of anvils that I know of. But anyway, this is for him, and it's also been done for Alex Vitorsky. And I didn't know that until later, but Alex is a very good friend of mine. He's actually been a customer in the past that I worked with to do the AFOL signs. We did a limited number of those, 30 of them, and we had to serialize them. But anyway, he's a great guy, and he's got a Instagram page, Vise for Vices. You ought to check it out and see some of the stuff he collects. And, of course, Andrew Alexander, his Instagram is Blacksmith Tools. On the next video, I will cover our trip to Virginia, showing you what we brought back, along with giving you all the details of that hilly journey. As for the hats that I mentioned about a month ago, they're still in the works. I don't have an actual finished product in my hand. I don't want anything that's mass-produced outside of the United States shipped over here and then embroidered here. That doesn't reflect who I am, and you don't want to be buying that either, I know. So if if we can't get this done like the way I want it done, we just won't do it. But I know several of you have showed interest in it, and I would really like to get some hats cranked out here, but it's got to be done here. So bear with me. I'm trying to push that along, and maybe we'll have something available by Christmas. I don't know. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I've got some really neat stuff coming up. One is a project that I'm working on for the Barber Motorsports Museum out of Birmingham, Alabama. There's a couple different projects, and it just so happens I've had somebody in my comments in the last couple videos asking, do you do lost wax casting? Well, the answer at this point is no. But because of the project that I'm working on with the Motorsport Museum, we're going to try it and see what happens. They sent the pattern. I'll show that when I get ready to do the video. It's going to be pretty interesting for me and you, I think. I got burned in this video where I'm pulling the crucible out of the furnace and the plinth is stuck to the bottom of it. I cooked my arm pretty good. I don't know if you can see it. It's not as bad as I have had them. And luckily it's not on my hand. Yeah, if that had been on my hand, it'd probably be a week or two shut down. I will conclude this video here. I hope y'all have a good day, a great weekend, and I will talk to you later.